The last chain. 20 years after Earth became a graveyard of ash and silence, Sullivan dragged his scarred hands across molten steel in the belly of Drakkar 7. The slave colony orbited nothing, a station built in the void between dying stars where the Coalition kept their most valuable cattle, humans. But humans weren't alone in their suffering. The smelting floor stretched 3 kilometers in every direction, a cathedral of torture where the air itself could peel skin. Kai worked beside Aria Chen, a woman whose delicate fingers once sutured hearts, but now only gripped industrial tongs. To his left stood Vecnor, a towering crystalline being whose people had resisted the Zorkon Empire for 2 centuries before falling. His body refracted light in ways that hurt to witness, each facet a reminder of beauty that endured even here. "Temperature rising on line 7, Aria whispered, her Mandarin accent still clinging to certain consonants despite decades of silence. Kai didn't respond. The neural dampeners implanted in their brainstems punished conversation with migraines that could blind. But he tilted his head, a fraction of a degree, and Aria understood. She always understood. The overseers circled above on gravitational platforms. The Verasi, slug-like creatures swimming through membrane suits filled with ammonia. The Krell, 6-limbed arthropods, his compound eyes could detect a rebellious thought in the twitch of a muscle. And worst of all, the Zorkon themselves. Bipedal, eerily humanoid, with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that held nothing but contempt for flesh weaker than their own. A klaxon shrieked. Line 7 had breached. Superheated plasma vomited across the floor, catching 3 workers before they could scatter. 2 humans, 1 Felfari, a small, furred creature whose species had been pacifists before the conquest. They burned without screaming. The dampeners wouldn't allow it. Aria's hand found Kai's for half a heartbeat. Her touch said everything. We're next. Eventually, we're all next. That night, in the sleeping warren were 2,000 slaves pressed together for warmth against the station's recycled cold. Kai stared at rust-stained ceiling panels and calculated how many shifts remained before his body simply quit. 40? 50? A shadow moved beside him. Dr. Hassan Youssef, 73 years old, his dark skin mapped with burn scars like ancient papyrus. Once he'd taught quantum mechanics at Cairo University. Now he emptied waste containers. Tomorrow, Section 9, Maintenance Shaft. Kai's heart performed gymnastics his face couldn't betray. He blinked twice. Acknowledgement. Youssef vanished back into the human press. The maintenance shaft smelled like ozone and desperation. 13 beings gathered in the dark. 8 humans, 3 crystalline Vecnor, 1 Thelthari named Pip, whose eyes glowed softly amber, and 1 Thulzin, a telepathic entity that appeared as a shifting mass of shadows with too many angles. Chen Wei, 60 years old, former shuttle pilot, spoke first. His voice carried the weight of someone who'd already accepted death. We have 1 chance. 1. The transport frigate Kethera docks here every 6 months. It leaves in 43 cycles. Security? Asked Zara Thompson, 19, still young enough to have been born in chains. Her generation knew Earth only as mythology. Biometric locks. Youssef pulled a scavenged datapad from beneath his tunic. Its screen cracked but functional. 3 separate species signatures required to access helm controls. Zorkon, Vorasi, Krell. Without all 3, the ship won't move. Vecnor clicked and chimed, their crystalline structure resonating words in frequencies that bypassed the neural dampeners. Aria translated. She'd learned their language during shifts where they worked side by side, teaching each other rebellion in harmonics and silence. My people can forge Zorkon signatures, Aria said. I work medical. I have access to tissue samples, DNA records. The Vorasi will be harder. This came from the Thulzin, whose name was unpronounceable, but who answered to Shadow. Their mental voice bypassed ears entirely, manifesting as concepts rather than words. I can cloud their minds during the extraction, make them forget. And Krell? Kai spoke for the first time. Silence thickened. Pip, the small Felthari, chittered softly. I can do it. Krell guards take me sometimes. They think I'm cute. Harmless. The words dripped with venom. They're wrong. Over the following months, the impossible took shape. Aria stole genetic material during mandatory health screenings, hiding samples in her cheek, spitting them into makeshift containers fashioned from food packaging. The dampeners punished her nightly with seizures that left her convulsing in Kai's arms. Stop, he begged during one particularly brutal episode. Blood traced from her nose. We'll find another way. She seized his collar when the fit passed, her strength surprising. There is no other way. You know this, Kai. And he did. The truth was an anchor in his chest. Either they escaped or they died here. There was no third option. The Vecnor worked metallurgy, bending salvaged materials into shapes that mimicked security keys. Their crystalline bodies could resonate at frequencies that fooled certain sensors, but the process cracked their structures. Each forgery cost them fragments of themselves, literal pieces of their being that would never regenerate. Shadow infiltrated overseer minds, planting false memories, creating gaps in surveillance logs. The telepathic strain showed in their form, the angles of their body growing sharper, more fractured, as if reality itself struggled to contain them. Chen Wei mapped the station through decades of observation, scratching coordinates on the underside of his bunk with a stolen stylus. The route existed only in his memory now. If he died, the escape died with him. And Kai? Kai built. Scavenging components from a dozen different systems, he assembled a portable biometric scrambler that would, if Yusuf's calculations were correct, grant them 30 seconds to board the Kezira before alarms screamed. 30 seconds. 13 lives balanced on half a minute. During this, something grew between Kai and Aria that defied the dampener's suppression. They communicated in touches, a brush of fingers, passing tools, the press of shoulders during lineups, the shared warmth in the sleeping warren. Their conversations happened in glances that contained novels. One night, 3 weeks before the escape, Aria woke him by tracing words on his palm. I have something to tell you. He traced back. Now? Her finger drew slow, deliberate. After. When we're free. I need to tell you in open air. Tell me now, he insisted. She shook her head in the dark. It's my hope. If I say it now, in this place, it'll be tainted. I want to give it to you under a real sky. He pulled her close, and they lay there counting each other's heartbeats until the wake klaxon tore them apart.
Cycle 43 arrived with the subtlety of an execution. The Kethera docked at 0600 station time. A massive frigate designed for bulk cargo. It could carry 300 passengers if those passengers didn't require amenities like comfort or dignity. The plan was surgical. During the shift change at 1800, when exhaustion dulled even the sharpest overseer, the 13 would converge on Base 7. Everything went wrong immediately. Zara was late. The dampeners had triggered during her shift, leaving her unconscious in the plastics division. By the time Shadow found her and pulled her mind back from seizure dark, they'd lost 8 minutes. We go anyway, Chen Wei decided. His pilot's instinct screamed abort, but his heart knew they'd never get another chance. The group fragmented across the station, using maintenance tunnels Yusuf had mapped. Kai clutched the biometric scrambler against his chest like a holy relic. Beside him, Aria moved with medical precision, each step calculated. Behind them, 2 of the Vecnor chimed softly, a prayer and crystalline. Base 7 loomed ahead.
The cathara sat in dock clamps, its hull scarred from 100 voyages. Freedom. Right there. Kai could taste it. Shadow's mental voice exploded in their minds. Run. The lights died. Emergency reds activated, and they were surrounded. Krell gods descended from ceiling hatches. Varasi sealed exit points, their ammonia suits gleaming. A Zorkon commander stepped forward, obsidian skin drinking the red light, making him a wound in the air. Remarkable, the commander said, his voice like stones grinding. 13 different species, unified in stupidity. Chenwei moved first. The old pilot drew a shiv made from sharpened scrap and lunged. The Zorkon caught his wrist, twisted, and Chen's arms separated at the shoulder with a wet crack. He died before he hit the floor. Chaos erupted. The Vecnors sang, a harmonic assault that shattered Krell carapaces. One guard exploded in a spray of chitin and ichor, but the return fire was devastating. Plasma rounds punched through crystalline bodies, superheating their structures until they detonated from within. The first Vecnor died instantly. The second lasted long enough to take 3 guards with them. Shadow poured into the Zorkon mind, attempting to shred his consciousness. But the commander had implants, military-grade psionic defenses. Shadow's form began to unravel, their angles collapsing inward as the commander's technology ripped at their being. Go. Shadow's final thought wasn't words, but pure emotion. Live. Please. Someone live. They dissolved into geometric chaos and were gone. Kai ran. He grabbed Aria's hand and ran. Zara was beside them. Then she wasn't. A plasma bolt took her in the spine. Pip the Felfari darted between legs, too small and quick for the guards to target, covering the humans' escape with a bravery that defied their diminutive frame. The Kethera was 15 meters away. Kai raised the scrambler, pressed the activation stud, and Yusuf appeared from nowhere, shoving them forward. Go, I'll buy you time. Hassan, no. The old professor smiled. It was the first genuine smile Kai had seen in 2 decades. Yusuf said, "Teach them we existed." Then he pulled a device from his tunic, the jury-rigged explosive he'd never mentioned, and charged the Zorkon line. The blast took out 12 guards and collapsed half the docking bay. In the confusion, 6 beings made it aboard the Kethera. Kai, Aria, Pip, 1 Vecnor named Shard, and 2 other humans, brothers named Davi and Marcus Okafor. Kai's fingers flew across the helm controls. The biometric scrambler bought them 28 seconds. 28 seconds to initialize engines, disengage clamps, and pray the ship's AI accepted the forged credentials. 18 seconds remaining. The engine screamed. 12 seconds. Docking clamps disengaged. 6 seconds. The bay doors ahead were closing. 0. The Kethera launched like a bullet, scraping through the narrowing gap, trailing sparks and debris. Behind them, Drakkar 7 erupted with alarms. Pursuit craft began launching. Faster! Aria screamed. I'm trying. Kai's hands danced across controls he barely understood. A plasma cannon round grazed their port side. Hull breach warnings cascaded. Pip sealed the breach with their own body, their fur flash freezing in vacuum before emergency systems kicked in. The Vecnar, Shard, plugged directly into navigation, using their crystalline form as a living computer. Their resonance grew erratic, painful. Hyperspace window, there, 90 seconds. They weren't going to make it. 3 pursuit craft closed from behind, more weapons charged. Then, Aria collapsed. Kai turned, saw the blood spreading across her abdomen. A stray plasma fragment, tiny, superheated, had penetrated her side during the bay fight. She'd said nothing, hidden it, kept moving. No. The word escaped Kai as something between prayer and howl. No, no, no. 60 seconds to window, Shard reported. Kai abandoned the helm. He dragged Aria to him, pressing his hands against the wound. The blood was so hot it burned his palms. "Stay with me. Aria, stay." Her hand found his cheek. Her touch was cold. "I was going to tell you." "Tell me now. Tell me right now." "Under a real sky." She coughed, blood on her lips. "I wanted to tell you under a real sky. We'll have a sky. We'll have 1,000 skies. Just hold on." 30 seconds. "Kai?" Aria's voice was fading, a signal losing strength. "I'm pregnant." The world stopped. The alarms, the pursuit, the dying ship, everything ceased to exist except those 2 words. "What?" 2 months? I found out just before." She found his eyes, held them. "It's yours. Ours. I wanted to tell you when we were free, wanted our child's first word to be spoken in freedom." "No, no." Kai's voice shattered. "You don't get to tell me this and then leave. You don't. 10 seconds, Shard whispered. Aria pulled him down, kissed him with lips that tasted like copper and stardust. "Name her Hope. Promise me." I promise. Hyperspace. Now." Shard triggered the jump. Reality fractured. The universe turned inside out. And in Kai's arms, Aria Chen stopped breathing.
The Cathara tumbled through hyperspace for 6 days before emerging into a system with 3 suns and no name. Shard guided them to the 5th planet, a world of purple vegetation and methane seas that couldn't support human life in its native form but had terraformable pockets in the equatorial zones. They were the first beings to ever touch its surface. Kai didn't speak for the entire 6 days. He held Aria's body in the cargo hold, refusing to let the Okafor brothers bury her in space. Pip sat with him, the small Felthari's amber eyes constant in the dark. They didn't speak either. What words existed for this? When they landed, Kai dug her grave with his bare hands. The soil was wrong, too purple, too acidic. But he dug until his fingers bled, and then he dug more. Shard used their resonance to shape a marker from local stone, carving Aria's name in 17 languages: human, Vecnor, Felthari, and 14 others from species that might be extinct now. Davi, the Okafor, the younger brother, tried to offer comfort. "She died free. That's more than—" "Don't!" Kai's voice was gravel. "Don't you dare finish that sentence." They held a ceremony at sunset. 3 suns painted the sky in colors that had no names in any Earth language. Kai stood over the grave and felt the weight of 2 losses, Aria and the future she'd carried. A child who would never breathe, a daughter who would never hear her name. Hope, dead before she could begin. "She was everything good we had left," Kai said to be Alien Sunset, "and I couldn't save her." Shard chimed softly. Through Pip's translation, they said, "She saved us. Her sacrifice bought the seconds we needed to escape. Without her courage, I don't want philosophy." Kai's shouts scattered purple birds from purple trees. "I want her back. I want to hear her voice. I want to—" He broke, collapsing beside the grave, his body racking with sobs that the dampeners would have punished, but which now flowed free, because they were finally, cruelly free. Pip approached carefully, placed a small paw on his shoulder. "Grieve," the Felthari said. "Grieve fully. It's the only gift you can give her now." So he did, for hours, until his throat was raw and his eyes were swollen and the 3 suns had set and risen again. 6 survivors built a settlement in the equatorial zone where the air was almost breathable. They named it Nothing. Names felt presumptuous. The Okafor brothers, Davy and Marcus, were engineers. They repurposed the Cathara systems to create water recyclers, atmospheric processors, basic shelter. The ship would never fly again, but it could keep them alive. Pip scouted. Their size and agility made them ideal for exploring the hostile terrain. They mapped water sources, identified edible plants, cataloged the local fauna. 6-legged things that might have been analogous to deer if deer had scales and breathed methane.
Shard did something none of them fully understood. The Vecnor would stand in fields of purple grass, resonating at frequencies that made the air shimmer. Slowly, gradually, the soil began to change, became more Earth-like, more welcoming to human crops. Terraforming, Shard explained when Kai finally asked. My people were gardeners before we were warriors. I'm singing this world into habitability. It will take decades, perhaps centuries, but your species needs time to heal. Your species. Not ours. Shard knew they were dying. The battle had cracked something fundamental in their crystalline matrix. Each day, small pieces of their body would fall away, chiming as they hit the ground. They were becoming gravel, one note at a time. Kai tried to stop it, tried to repair the cracks, but Vecnor physiology was beyond him. Let me fade, Shard said. I'm tending a garden I'll never see bloom. That's enough. Kai worked. He threw himself into construction, farming, exploration, anything to avoid the silence where memory lived. He built irrigation systems. He cataloged soil samples. He reinforced shelters against the planet's violent storms. But every night, he stood at Aria's grave and talked to her. We found something today that might be corn. Pip thinks it's poisonous, but we're running tests. The Okafors are arguing about generator placement again. Marcus wants efficiency, Davy wants aesthetics. I think they just need something to fight about that isn't everything we lost. He told her about the settlement's progress, about how Shard was dying but wouldn't admit it, about how Pip had nightmares where they were back in Drakkar 7 being petted by Krell guards. He told her about the guilt, how he lived and she hadn't, how their daughter, Hope, existed only as potential, as a name that would never be spoken except by him. I don't know how to do this without you, he whispered one night, 3 months after landing. Every decision feels wrong. Every victory feels hollow. We're free, Aria. We're free, and I hate it because you're not here to see it. The purple grass whispered in alien wind. 3 moons rose over the mountains, and Kai Sullivan stood alone in a freedom that felt like a prison.
Year 1, Day 287. Marcus Okafor burst into the communal shelter, his dark skin shining with sweat, despite the temperature-controlled environment. We're getting a transmission. Everyone froze. A transmission meant someone else was out there, either survivors or the Coalition. They gathered around the Cathara's communication array. Static hissed through speakers. Then, emerging from the noise, a voice. Anyone out there, this is Arkship Remembrance, Earth's survivors, 40,000 souls, seeking refuge. Please respond. 40,000. The number hit like a physical blow. They weren't alone. Humanity endured. Davi worked frantically to boost their signal. They're far, really far. The transmission is months old, maybe years. We need to... The signal cut out. They waited 3 hours. It didn't return. But they'd heard it. Proof that others had escaped. That the human story wasn't limited to 6 traumatized survivors on a nameless world. That night, Kai visited the grave with something other than grief. You hear that? He asked the purple soil. We're not the last. Somewhere out there, 40,000 people are carrying Earth forward. Your sacrifice wasn't for 6 lives. It was for all of us. He placed his hand on the stone marker. I'm going to find them, Aria. I'm going to make sure they know what you did, what all of you did. The 13 who tried, the 7 who died. I'll make sure they know. In the shelter, the 5 survivors held an impromptu council. We can't respond, Pip said practically. Our transmitter isn't strong enough. By the time we build one that can reach them, they'll be gone. Then we build a beacon, something permanent, something that will broadcast for decades if necessary, so that anyone else out there, any other escapees, will know this world is safe. Shard chimed in, their structure noticeably smaller than 3 months prior. I can help. A resonance beacon, powered by the planet's magnetic field. It will outlast us all. Marcus grinned.
We're going to need a name then. Can't have a beacon that just says unnamed world. They debated, suggested Earth names, New Delhi, New Lagos, New Shanghai. But those felt like theft, like trying to resurrect what was gone. Finally, Pip spoke up. Aria. Silence. She led us here, the Felthari continued. Her samples, her courage, her sacrifice. This world exists for us because she existed. We should call it Aria. Kai's throat tightened. He managed a nod. They built the beacon over the next 4 months, a tower of stone and salvaged technology that rose 300 meters from the plateau overlooking Aria's grave. Shard embedded themselves in its foundation, using their dying body as the resonance core. This is my garden, Shard said, as the Vecnor's consciousness began to fragment. Tell whoever comes, that we sang this world into being. The beacon activated at dawn. Its pulse carried their coordinates, their story, their invitation to the lost and desperate. Come. Be safe. Rebuild. The settlement wasn't called anything. They just called it here. 5 survivors had become 7, 2 children born in the 2nd year. Davy's daughter Sarah, Marcus's son Chen, named for the pilot who died giving them a chance. The crops grew, purple-tinged wheat that wasn't quite wheat, vegetables that approximated earth foods. They'd never taste Italian cuisine again or savor authentic Thai curry, but they wouldn't starve. Pip had built a library, scavenged datapads holding everything they remembered about Earth: history, art, science, music. The Felthari spent their days writing it all down, preserving what memory could salvage. For the children, Pip explained, so they'll know where they came from, even if they never see it. Kai aged, not just in years but in weight, the kind of weight that came from carrying ghosts. He was 43 but looked 60. The others worried. He worked too hard, slept too little, spent too many nights at the grave. You're killing yourself, Marcus told him bluntly. Aria wouldn't want this. Aria's dead, Kai replied. What she wants doesn't matter anymore. Then what about Hope, the daughter you promised to name? Also dead. Both of them. Dead and buried and... No. Marcus grabbed his shoulders. Hope isn't dead. Hope is Chen. Hope is Sarah. Hope is every human being who draws breath under an alien sky because you built the tools that let us escape. Stop mourning what's gone and start protecting what's here. The words were brutal. They were also right. Kai began teaching the children. Engineering, physics, agricultural science, whatever he knew. Sarah was brilliant with machines. Chen could calculate orbital mechanics in his head by age 4. They were the future. They were hope, plural. But he still visited the grave, every night, without fail. Year 5. Day 188. Pip returned from a scouting expedition vibrating with excitement. There's a valley, 2 days east. You need to see this. They traveled together, Kai, Marcus, and Pip. The valley was sheltered by crystalline cliffs that sang in the wind, creating harmonics that sounded almost like Shard's voice. And in the valley's heart, growing wild, was something impossible. Trees. Earth trees. Oak, maybe, or something that had been oak once. Their bark was purple-tinged, and their leaves glowed faintly at night, but the structure was unmistakable. How? Marcus whispered. Kai knelt, examining the soil. Then he understood. Shard. Before they died, Shard must have seeded this valley, transformed it. They were singing the planet into something we could recognize. The trees stood in perfect rows, a grove, an orchard, a gift from a being who died to make aliens feel at home on an alien world. They wept, all three of them. Standing in an impossible forest, they wept for the crystalline gardener who'd given them this. Kai decided then, the settlement would expand here. They'd build among Shard's trees. They'd make this valley into something worthy of the sacrifice. We'll call it the Grove, and we'll teach our children to honor the being who planted it. Year 7, Day 12. The Ark ship Remembrance dropped out of hyperspace on a Tuesday. They still used Earth days, clinging to that small thread of home. It was massive, a generation ship carrying 42,000 survivors in cryosleep, piloted by a skeleton crew of 300. Their beacon had worked, had called across the void and been answered. The ship's captain, a woman named Aria Chen, met them in the grove. She was stern, military, exhausted. "Your beacon saved us," she said simply. "We were down to our last fuel reserves. Another month, and we would have died in the dark." 42,000 souls, coming to Aria. The planet couldn't support that many, not yet. But with the Ark's resources, with their combined knowledge, we can make this work, Marcus said, already calculating infrastructure needs. Amara studied the 7 survivors, studied the children playing in alien grass, studied the grave on the plateau where the beacon sang. "Who was she?" she asked, reading the marker. "Aria Chen. Who was she that you'd name a world for her?" Kai told the story, all of it. Drakkar 7, the escape, the 13 who tried, the 7 who died. He told it without embellishment, without dramatics. Just the facts, spoken in the grove that Shard had planted. When he finished, Amara was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "We'll build a memorial for all of them, the 13 and all the others who died so we could live. We'll make sure every child born here knows their names." Over the following years, Aria transformed. The Ark's technology combined with the survivors' knowledge to terraform on a scale previously unimaginable. Cities rose, not like Earth's cities, but something new, something that honored both human and Vecnor's aesthetic. The grove became the capital's heart. The memorial stood beside the beacon, 13 statues carved from local stone. Aria Chen, Hassan Yusuf, Chen Wei, Shadow, the Vecnor who'd sung themselves to pieces, Zara Thompson, all of them immortalized. And beside Aria's statue, 2 names were carved, Kai Sullivan and Hope Chen Sullivan, the father and the daughter who never was. Year 23. Kai was 61 and looked every day of it. Gray threaded his hair, scars mapped his hands, but he was alive, still teaching, still building. The settlement, now called First Grove, held 120,000 souls. Human, yes, but not only. 3 Vecnor had arrived on a refugee ship, a dozen Felthari, even a reformed Thulzon who claimed to have escaped the Coalition's mental conditioning. They were building something unprecedented, a society where species that had been enemies learned to coexist. It wasn't easy. There were fights. Prejudices died hard, but the children gave him hope. Hope, plural. Hope incarnate. Sarah Okafor, now 21, ran the engineering corps. Chen Okafor taught xenobiology at the new university. And there were others, hundreds of others, born free under alien skies, who knew oppression only from history lectures. Kai stood at Aria's grave, as he had every night for 23 years. The purple grass had spread, carpeting the plateau. The 3 moons were up, painting everything silver and gold. "We did it," he told the stone. "Not the way we planned, not without cost, but we did it. Hope is real. She's everywhere I look." A small hand tugged his sleeve. He looked down. A girl, maybe 6 years old, human with Vecnor lineage evident in the slight crystalline sheen to her dark skin. A hybrid, the first of her kind. "Are you Kai?" she asked. "I am." "My teacher says you knew Aria, the hero." Hero, the word sat strange in his mouth. "I knew her. She was everything." "What was she like?" Kai knelt, meeting the child's eyes. "She was brave. So brave that she stole genetic samples while the dampeners tortured her mind. She was kind, so kind that she hid her own mortal wound because she didn't want to slow us down. And she was hopeful. Even in the darkest place, she believed in tomorrow." "Is it true she was going to have a baby?" "Yes." "What would she have named it?" Kai smiled for the first time in weeks. "Hope." The little girl considered this. "That's my name. Hope. There are 17 of us in First Grove, all named Hope. The teachers say it's because we're what everyone fought for." Kai's vision blurred. He pulled the child into a hug, this stranger who carried Aria's legacy in her name and in her existence. "You are," he whispered. "You absolutely are." The girl ran off, back to her family. Kai stayed at the grave, watching the settlement lights twinkle in the valley below. Shard's trees glowed softly, their bioluminescence creating a constellation at ground level. "I kept my promise," he told Aria. "Hope lives in every child, in every hybrid, in every being who chooses to build instead of destroy. She lives, Aria. Our daughter lives." The wind carried no answer, but it didn't need to. The answer was the settlement below, the stars above, the soil beneath his feet. The answer was life persisting despite everything. The answer was hope. He placed his hand on the stone marker one last time. "Rest well, love. I'll see you when my time comes, and I'll have so many stories to tell you about the world you gave us, about the hope you made possible." Kai Sullivan stood. His joints ached, his heart was scarred, but he walked down from the plateau toward the lights of First Grove, toward the future Aria Chen died to secure, and for the first time in 23 years, the weight on his shoulders felt like it might be bearable. Not gone, never gone, but bearable. The 3 suns would rise in 4 hours, and when they did, 120,000 beings would wake to a day their parents thought impossible. They would wake free. They would wake to hope. And that was enough.